If every comment, every minor setback is allowed to burrow under your skin, you are willingly surrendering your power. The truth is, the strongest among us are not those who face fewer problems. They are those who have mastered their response to them. Imagine moving through life like that, untouched by gossip, unmoved by judgment, unshaken by the chaos of the world. No more spiraling into overthinking, no more being lost in emotional storms. Only a steady, quiet composure, no matter what is thrown your way. And here lies the paradox. The moment you stop letting everything disturb you, you don't become cold or distant. You become free. You discover a strength that commands respect without raising your voice, a presence that turns setbacks into stepping stones. If this idea speaks to you, then let this be a reminder, a seed of discipline and wisdom you choose to plant on your journey towards self-mastery. Because the path to becoming unshakable begins here, with the decision to grow. Think about it. Most people allow external noise to dictate their inner world. A rude comment can poison an entire day. A minor inconvenience can trigger a wave of frustration that lingers long after the moment has passed. We are constantly handing over our peace of mind to people and situations that, in truth, do not deserve such control over us. But what if you stopped letting the world pull your strings? What if nothing outside of you could touch your inner calm, no matter how loud or distracting it became? This is where true strength begins, not in controlling others, not in bending the world to your will, but in mastering yourself. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. When you understand that your reaction is always a choice, you reclaim the power that most people give away every single day. Life will always present challenges. People will misunderstand, criticize, and even betray you. Circumstances will shift without warning. But your response, that is always yours. When you stop reacting impulsively and learn to pause, to remain still in the eye of the storm, you step into a state of control that most will never experience. This isn't about pretending you don't feel. It's about becoming the kind of person who is not ruled by their feelings. Instead of being thrown about by every storm, you become the anchor within it. Isn't it true that the people who leave the deepest impression are those who remain unshaken? Think of someone you admire who never seems rattled. They don't need to shout to be heard or defend themselves at every turn. Their very calmness is a source of authority. It brings to mind the wisdom of Carl Jung, who said, "Your vision will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakes." This inner clarity frees you from reacting to every disturbance, creating a presence so powerful it cannot be ignored. Imagine being insulted in public. The common reaction is to snap back, to get defensive, to lash out. But what if instead you offered a quiet smile and walked away? You would not only preserve your own peace, but you would rob the other person of the power they sought. They expected to control you with their words. By refusing to play their game, you have already won. This is why detachment is so powerful. It leaves the aggressor confused and without control, while you walk away untouched, undefeated, and stronger than before. This way of living changes everything. It doesn't mean you become indifferent. It means you refuse to waste your energy on things that do not matter. Seneca once wrote, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." How many times have you replayed an insult in your mind, long after it was spoken? How many nights have been lost to overthinking something that, in the grand scheme, holds no weight? When you learn to act as if nothing bothers you, you stop giving away days, weeks, and even years of your life to things that don't deserve them. Consider failure. For some, failure is crushing. It makes them question their worth, and many never recover. But for those who master detachment, failure is not a personal defeat. It is information. It is feedback. It is a lesson disguised as a setback. They don't let failure define them. They allow it to refine them. And because of that, they rise faster and stronger than those who remain stuck, lamenting what went wrong. This is what separates the resilient from the broken. The ability to see failure as part of the process, not the end of the story. Pressure works the same way. Life will place you under pressure, again and again. Some people break, others fold, but the ones who thrive are those who have prepared their minds. They don't expect smooth sailing. They expect resistance. As Epictetus taught, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. Pressure exposes us. It reveals who has trained their mind and who has not. If you can remain calm in the middle of chaos, you gain an advantage most people will never know. But this calmness doesn't come from wishing for an easy life. It comes from training. Just as a muscle grows stronger against resistance, the mind becomes unshakable by facing adversity without yielding. Every time you choose silence over an argument, patience over frustration, clarity over confusion, you are strengthening yourself. These small moments, repeated daily, build the armor that protects you from the noise of the world. There is something magnetic about people who carry this kind of armor. Others are drawn to them, often without understanding why. It's because they embody a mystery. They are not easily read, provoked, or shaken. In a world where most are desperate for validation, a soul that moves with quiet purpose is captivating. People look up to them because they cannot figure them out. They wonder, how does nothing seem to touch them? How do they stay so composed while everyone else falls apart? Silence is one of the most powerful tools in this way of life. Most people cannot handle it. They rush to fill it with words, explanations, and justifications. But when you remain silent, you hold the power. You observe, you listen, you watch others reveal themselves without giving away anything of your own. Silence unsettles people because it leaves them alone with their own thoughts. It forces them to confront themselves while you remain steady. As Aristotle observed, knowing yourself is the beginning of all wisdom. And silence is one of the fastest paths to that knowledge. The more you learn to stay silent when provoked, the more you disarm others. Insults lose their sting. Criticism loses its grip. Your worth is no longer built upon the words of others. When you are no longer controlled by words, you free yourself from one of the most common chains of human existence: the need for approval. This need is a trap. We are conditioned to chase it, to measure our worth by it. But the moment you stop needing everyone's applause, you become truly free. As Plato said, a person of good character does not need the approval of others. The constant need for validation makes you fragile, forcing you to bend to fit other people's molds. When you detach from that need, you walk your own path, unapologetically. You stop asking for permission to live. Of course, this doesn't mean ignoring all criticism. There is wisdom in listening, but the key is to filter it through logic, not emotion. Some criticism helps you grow. Some is just noise. The strong person knows the difference. They accept what is useful, discard what is not, and move forward without being consumed by it. This principle is at work in every great mind of history. Socrates endured mockery with a calmness that confused his enemies. Seneca remained composed while living under the shadow of emperors. They knew that true power lies not in changing the world outside, but in mastering the world within. This is why letting go of what you cannot control is the ultimate freedom. So much of our suffering comes not from events themselves, but from the stories we tell ourselves about them. The world will never stop testing you. There will always be insults, setbacks, and pressures. But you do not have to crumble. You can choose composure. You can choose calm. You can choose strength. Master yourself, and nothing outside of you will ever have the power to master you again. Do you know why it hurts so much when someone disrespects you? It's because, often without realizing it, you have handed them the power to define your worth. Their words dig into you because you let them touch something sacred, the way you see yourself. The moment you react with anger or despair, you've given them ownership of your emotions. You've surrendered control. But what happens when you refuse to react? When you let their words pass through you like wind through an open window? Something remarkable occurs. You take back your power. You stand firm in yourself, unshaken. In doing so, you not only rise above them, but you quietly unsettle them, because the reaction they expected never came. This is why the strongest people often appear untouchable. It's not that they never feel insulted. It's that they have chosen not to let insults define them. As Epictetus said, if someone speaks ill of you, do not make excuses, but say, "He was ignorant of my other faults, or he would not have mentioned these alone." His point was not arrogance. It was freedom. When you no longer cling to the opinions of others, their criticism loses its sting. When you live this way, you stop being reactive and start being intentional. You no longer move because someone pushed your buttons. You move because you chose to. That difference is everything. As Carl Jung observed, everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. The moment you feel that spark of anger at someone's words, it becomes an opportunity to look inward rather than lash outward. What part of you gave them that access? What wound did they touch? Will you continue to leave that wound exposed, or will you choose to heal it by revoking their power over it? An insult is not an objective truth. It is a projection. It is a string of words aimed at you, hoping to stir a reaction. If you accept it, if you let it pierce you, you give it life. If you reject it, not with anger, but with calm indifference, it dissolves into nothing. This is why remaining composed is so unsettling to those who attack you. They expect to feed on your energy. Without your response, they are left empty-handed and weakened. You, on the other hand, walk away with your dignity untouched. Seneca taught that a man who suffers before it is necessary suffers more than is necessary. Most pain from disrespect comes not from the moment itself, but from the endless replay in your mind afterward. You give that person free rent in your head, but when you choose not to react, you cut off their power in the moment and in all the moments that follow. You free yourself from the invisible chains of overthinking. Let's be honest. Remaining calm when insulted is not easy. It goes against instinct. Our pride wants to defend itself. Yet true strength is found not in satisfying the ego, but in choosing silence over impulse, clarity over noise. The irony is that by not defending yourself, you mount the strongest defense of all. Your stillness declares, "I am beyond this." And that message is louder than any shout. Think of the most powerful figures in history. The ones who left lasting impressions were not those who barked back at every critic, but those who maintained their composure in the face of chaos. There is a strange kind of dominance in not responding. When someone expects a fight and you give them nothing, you create an imbalance. They stumble, unsure what to do with your silence. In their eyes, you become untouchable. You hold the higher ground, not by conquering them, but by refusing to even enter their battlefield. This is the quiet power that draws respect, even from your provocateurs. Detachment is not the same as indifference. It doesn't mean nothing matters to you. It means you carefully choose what does. As Socrates taught, peace of mind comes from stop caring about things that don't matter. Most disrespectful comments belong in that category. Save your strength for what truly deserves it. And so, the next time someone disrespects you, pause. Let the moment pass without surrendering your composure. Notice how the power shifts instantly. Notice how free you feel walking away with your dignity intact. That strength, that freedom, is what it means to live unbothered. Because, in the end, disrespect only has the power you give it. When you stop giving it power, you stop being its victim. You become the one who chooses, the one who decides, the one who remains steady, no matter what storms rise against you. This is the quiet strength of the unshakable mind, and it belongs to anyone who dares to claim it. Picture someone insulting you in public. The natural impulse is to fire back, to defend yourself, to raise your voice so that everyone watching knows you will not be humiliated. That instinct comes from a need to prove yourself in the eyes of others. But what happens if you don't? What happens if you simply smile and walk away? The person who tried to sting you is suddenly left powerless. They wanted to see you lose control. When it doesn't come, they are left unsettled, confused, wondering why their words couldn't pierce you. What they don't realize is that in that moment, the true balance of power has shifted. They revealed their weakness by needing a reaction, while you revealed your strength by refusing to give one. This kind of restraint isn't weakness, it's mastery. As Seneca said, the greatest remedy for anger is delay. By pausing, you starve the anger of the immediacy it thrives on. Walking away is not running. It is a declaration that you are not owned by another's words. Think about what that presence communicates to everyone around you. People watching might expect a fight, a sharp comeback, maybe even a heated argument. But when they see only your quiet composure, they witness something far more powerful. A person who cannot be pulled into chaos. A person who is truly free. Yet, when you remain calm, when you turn and walk away with quiet dignity, you leave behind a lasting impression. In their eyes, you transform into someone different, someone who possesses an authority that requires no proof. It is rarely the loudest person in the room who commands respect. True respect is earned by the one who has no need to shout, for their very composure speaks with more volume than words ever could. This is the power of detachment. It is not a descent into numbness or coldness. It is not the absence of emotion. It is the refusal to be ruled by emotion when it arises. You feel it, yes, but you do not bow to it. You register the insult. You feel its initial sting, and then you make a choice. You refuse to let it fester and grow. You choose peace over conflict, control over chaos. And in that singular choice lies freedom. But such freedom is a rare thing, is it not? Most people move through life chained to the opinions of others. A stranger's insult, a colleague's criticism, a friend's careless remark, each becomes a heavy stone in the baggage they carry, long after the words have faded. They replay these moments in their minds, allowing them to tear at their confidence, to disturb the stillness of their sleep. And yet, if you step back, you realize the absurdity of it all. To grant so much power to someone who likely forgot their words the moment they were spoken. The instant you walk away, leaving their insult behind, you cast off that weight. You remain light, untethered, unburdened. This act does more than protect you in the moment. It builds a reputation over time. When people learn you cannot be easily provoked, they begin to treat you differently. They may test you once or twice, but they will eventually understand that their words have no hold over you. And with that understanding comes a deeper respect, not the shallow admiration of the crowd, but a profound recognition that they are in the presence of someone who stands firm within themselves. As Aristotle said, the self-controlled person is free. This is not a freedom from challenge, but a freedom from the prison of our own reactions. Of course, some will always mistake calmness for weakness. They may believe that because you do not fight back, you lack strength. But this is where wisdom draws a line between you and the crowd. True strength is not measured by the volume of your response, but by the stillness of your resolve. A fire that burns quietly and steadily provides warmth far longer than one that flares violently and dies. In your silence, in your composure, there lies a depth of power that can never be faked. Those who mock this calmness often do so because they lack it themselves. Consider, too, the gift this grants you in daily life. How many conflicts, arguments, and lifelong regrets are born from words spoken in haste? How many relationships are fractured because pride demanded a reply? By choosing to walk away, by offering a simple smile and letting silence be your answer, you protect not only your own peace, but the peace of the moment itself. You create a space for clarity, for perspective, a space where wisdom, not impulse, can be your guide. This practice, repeated, builds resilience. Each time you resist the urge to react, you strengthen the muscle of your composure. What begins with walking away from a simple insult grows into the ability to remain steady during profound conflicts, setbacks, and crises. The small moments are your training ground. Like a warrior sharpening their blade on a whetstone before battle, you sharpen your mind in these everyday encounters, so that when life presents its true tests, you are ready. And here lies a deeper truth. Walking away is not merely about denying power to someone else. It is about affirming your own. When you refuse to lend your energy to petty attacks, you declare that your focus is reserved for higher things. Plato once observed that wise men speak because they have something to say. Fools because they have to say something. The same is true of action. You walk away because you know your actions are better spent elsewhere, moved not by the smallness of another's provocation, but only by what aligns with your own values, your own vision. Over time, this way of living transforms you. You become known as someone who cannot be easily rattled, whose presence is a steadying force even when the air is tense. This reputation, though subtle, is immensely powerful. People begin to trust you more. They seek you out in difficult moments, knowing you will not panic or lose control. You become a source of calm in a world addicted to noise, and that is one of the rarest, most valuable qualities a person can possess. The Emperor Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The best revenge is to be unlike your enemy." When insulted, the easiest path is to mirror the behavior, anger for anger, insult for insult. But in doing so, you become a reflection of what you despise. To walk away is to escape that trap. It is to remain aligned with your higher self, the self that does not stoop to the level of pettiness. That is why walking away is not surrender. It is victory. It is the ultimate proof that you belong to yourself and to no one else. So picture it again. Someone insults you. They wait for the reaction, the explosion, the chaos. But instead, you offer a gentle smile and turn away. They are left standing with their own words echoing in the silence, unsettled by your composure. And you? You leave with your dignity, your peace, and your power fully intact. This is the art of living unbothered. It is what it means to carry your strength quietly, to choose freedom over reaction, to act as if nothing bothers you, and in doing so, to make it true. And is that not the secret? True dominance is not about shouting louder, about being the most dramatic or explosive voice in the room. It is about not needing to react at all. The strongest presence is not the one that fills every silence with noise, but the one who can sit in that silence without flinching. Think of those you have met who hardly spoke, yet their presence filled the room. They did not raise their voice or force their opinions, yet their composure alone commanded attention. That is real strength. It is found not in volume, but in restraint. When you no longer feel the urge to prove yourself with words, when you no longer allow every challenge to pull you into conflict, you begin to embody a power that needs no announcement. It simply is. Most people confuse reaction with strength, believing they must answer every insult and defend every opinion to prove their value. But this constant need for validation reveals not power, but fragility. If a few words from another can pull you into a fight, then it is they who control you. As Marcus Aurelius also understood, the best answer to anger is silence. In silence there is no wasted energy, no exposed weakness. It is a shield that protects your dignity. When you stay calm, it unsettles people. In a world where outrage is the norm, your refusal to play the game creates a palpable shift. Imagine an antagonist, expecting a reaction, being met with your stillness. They will often push harder, desperate to find a crack in your calm. But as each attempt fails, it is not you who is weakened, but them. Their desperation reveals who truly holds the power. Here lies the paradox of dominance. The one who cares less about appearing dominant is often the one with the most control. This is not passivity, it is precision. To need no reaction does not mean you never act. It means you choose when and how to act, deliberately. A person who reacts to everything is predictable and easily manipulated. But a person who acts sparingly is a force to be reckoned with. Their unpredictability is their power. Facing his own death, Socrates did not lash out at his accusers. He remained thoughtful, steady. His composure in the face of injustice became his legacy, a silence that spoke louder than any argument. The strongest presence, then, is the one who can afford to wait, unbothered while others unravel in noise. And when you need nothing from others, they begin to offer you everything. They lean in when you finally speak, because they know your words are not wasted. Like gold, your carefully measured actions carry far more weight than endless chatter. Think of how many battles in your life were fought in vain, leaving you exhausted but changing nothing. Now, imagine the freedom of walking away from it all, not from weakness, but because you are strong enough to choose peace. As the Stoic Epictetus taught, any person capable of angering you becomes your master. Every reaction gives away your power. Every moment of stillness takes it back. At first, this practice feels unnatural. The ego resists, demanding to be defended. But with time, that discomfort fades, replaced by a quiet, unshakable confidence. Your worth is no longer a fragile thing that shatters when questioned. And the more you live this way, the more the world begins to treat you differently. People cannot provoke what does not react. They may try, but they will eventually learn that you are a wall, steady and unmoved. And they will respect you for it. Even those who dislike you cannot help but recognize that you are above the fray. Seneca wrote that adversity is an opportunity to prove oneself. Life's daily tests often come not as physical trials, but as words, insults, criticisms, disrespect. Each is a chance to prove yourself not by retaliating, but by mastering yourself. When you endure these moments without flinching, you claim a victory that is entirely your own. True dominance, then, is not control over others, but control over yourself. Anyone can shout. Anyone can argue. But it takes a rare discipline to smile, to remain calm, and to act only when it truly matters. That is the kind of strength that lasts long after the noise has faded. But why is this state of being so rare? The answer lies in our conditioning. From our earliest days, we are taught to react, to fight back lest we be seen as weak. The more you react, the more predictable you become. And a predictable person is an easy person to control. The moment someone knows how to pull your strings, they own you. So the real question is, do you wish to live as someone predictable, or do you wish to rise as someone untouchable? To break this conditioning is to discover that you do not have to fight battles that add nothing to your life. You step into a new way of being, one where your silence carries more authority than your words. This requires the bravery to let go of the need for external validation, a courage directed not outward against an enemy, but inward against the ego that constantly demands recognition. The rarest individuals are those who can sit in the fire of provocation and not be burned. They are unpredictable, not because they are chaotic, but because they are beyond control. People who rely on provoking others have no strategy for someone who simply refuses to play their game. And when you cannot be controlled, you are free. This freedom is built in the small moments. When you notice the urge to defend yourself, and instead, let silence be your answer. When you feel anger rise but allow it to pass without spilling onto another. These small choices rewire your mind, transforming you from someone reactive into someone steady. People will notice. They will sense your calmness and feel both respect and confusion, because you do not follow the script they expect. As Plato said, the first and best victory is to conquer self. This victory comes quietly, when you refuse to waste your peace on battles that do not matter. It comes when you realize that the greatest strength is not found in controlling others, but in mastering yourself. The path is not glamorous, but it is transformative. Each time you resist the urge to react, you sharpen your inner strength. Each time you choose calm over chaos, you step closer to freedom. Life becomes lighter. The noise of the world fades, and the chaos of others no longer invades your peace. You begin to live untouchable, not because the world has changed, but because you have. And that is the deepest form of power a person can ever know. The truth is, emotions are merely visitors. They arrive uninvited, often when you least expect them. Anger, fear, shame, doubt. They knock on your door, demanding to be let in, demanding a place at your table. But here is the secret. You do not have to invite them in. You can hear the knock, acknowledge their presence, and still choose not to open the door. That single choice changes everything. Because when you pause, even for a moment, before reacting, you break the chain that governs most people's lives. Most people do not pause. They fling the door open. They let the visitor take over their home. And before they know it, their entire state of being belongs to an emotion that was never meant to stay. Think of how often anger seizes the reins of a life. One sharp word, one careless gesture, and suddenly a person is carried away, shouting things they will later regret. In that moment, they are no longer in control. Their anger is. Fear works in the same way. It arrives and whispers of all that could go wrong, and if you let it inside, it paralyzes you before you have even begun. Shame is perhaps the most dangerous visitor of all, for it does not want to sit for a moment. It wants to move in permanently. It wants to live inside your head, whispering reminders of your mistakes, convincing you that you are diminished. Yet none of these emotions are permanent unless you give them permission. They are temporary, fleeting guests. If you learn to keep your doors locked, they eventually move on. Most people mistake a passing feeling for a permanent reality. They let a moment of anger define their day, or a burst of fear define their choices for years. But emotions do not last. They only seem powerful because we cling to them, replay them, and give them life long after they should have faded. The discipline of pausing before you react is the discipline of letting the visitor pass by, without turning your entire house upside down for their sake. As Carl Jung explained, what we resist not only persists, but grows stronger. If you slam the door in denial when anger comes, it will pound harder, demanding to be heard. If you try to bury shame, it finds new ways to resurface. The answer is not to fight the visitor, nor to pretend it does not exist, but to acknowledge its presence and still choose not to let it control you. Jung once said, "I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become." That is the essence of this practice. You are not your anger, though anger may knock. You are not your fear, though fear may arrive. You are what you choose to embody, and in that choice lies your freedom. This is where the pause becomes a superpower. A single pause creates a space wide enough for you to choose differently. Most people live in reaction, a cycle that repeats endlessly. Provocation, reaction, regret. They do not even see the space between stimulus and response. But it is always there. The Stoics practiced seeing that space and guarding it fiercely. Imagine being in a heated argument. Words are flying, voices are raised, your heart is racing. The natural response is to meet fire with fire. But in that moment, if you pause for just one breath, you take back control. You see that the anger is not you. It is just a visitor knocking for attention. In that pause, you choose whether to let it rule or to let it pass. Often, that 1 second is enough to turn conflict into resolution, chaos into calm. It may feel small, but it is the seed of transformation. This applies to every visitor. Think of fear. How many opportunities have been lost because someone let fear walk in and take control? Fear tells you not to speak up, not to take the risk, not to pursue the dream. If you let it stay, you shrink. But if you pause, if you watch fear without immediately bowing to it, you realize it has no real power. It is a shadow, not a wall. It disappears the moment you step into it. Shame, too, loses its grip when met with awareness. It is a messenger, not a verdict. Its knock says, something inside you wants healing, but it does not mean you are broken. By pausing before you absorb its voice, you can take the lesson without letting the weight destroy you. Practicing this transforms daily life. Instead of being carried away by every mood, you become a watcher of yourself. You notice irritation rising in traffic and choose not to let it steal your peace. You feel the sting of rejection, but refuse to let it define your worth. Over time, this practice becomes a habit, and the habit becomes strength. People will notice. They will wonder how you stay calm in storms that drive others mad. This mastery does not mean life stops testing you. The tests may even grow sharper. But you will no longer be a slave to the knock at the door. You will see the emotion, nod in acknowledgement, and move on with clarity. You will stop mistaking every knock for a command and start treating it as background noise. This is how the strongest individuals are made, not by eliminating emotions, but by learning to stand beside them without falling. As Socrates said, the unexamined life is not worth living. To examine your emotions in this way is to notice when you are reacting on autopilot and to ask, is this me, or is this just a visitor trying to move in? That question alone is enough to break the spell. You begin to see that what you once called your personality, your temper, your fears, was often just a series of unexamined reactions. Once you see that, you are free to shape a different self, one built on choice rather than compulsion. You will carry a calm that unsettles those who try to provoke you because they cannot find the handle to open your door. And in that calm lies true freedom. Not that the visitors never come, but that they no longer dictate your life. You become the host, not the hostage. You choose who enters, who stays, and who leaves. In making that choice, you become untouchable. Not because the knocks stop, but because you have learned that not every knock deserves an answer. Have you ever noticed how failure destroys some people, while others seem to rise from it with even greater strength? The event itself is rarely the deciding factor. Two people can experience the same setback, losing a job, failing in business, and their paths will diverge completely. One collapses under the weight of defeat, carrying it like a chain for years. The other dusts themselves off, learns from the experience, and moves forward with sharper focus. The difference is not the failure. The difference is the attachment. When you treat failure as proof of your inadequacy, it becomes part of your identity. But when you treat it as information, as feedback, it becomes data that guides your growth. One path leads to paralysis. The other leads to resilience. This shift in perspective is everything. Failure has no meaning until we assign it one. It is just an event, a moment in time, but we cling to it, replay it, and weave it into the story we tell ourselves. Once that happens, the story becomes heavier than the event itself. Carl Jung understood this deeply. He wrote, "In all chaos there is a cosmos, in all disorder a secret order." What feels like destruction often hides the seeds of transformation. But you can only discover that order if you detach your identity from the failure itself. If you collapse into despair and tell yourself, "I am a failure," you stop searching for meaning, and the hidden order remains buried. This is why some people fall apart. They confuse failing at something with being a failure. One is an event, the other is a self-image. And when you attach the event to your identity, you trap yourself within it. Think of Thomas Edison and the light bulb. Thousands of attempts did not work. Had he taken each failure as a reflection of his identity, the story would have ended long before his success. But for him, each failure was a discovery, one more way that would not work. Each setback was data that eventually led to a breakthrough. Failure doesn't kill progress. Attachment does. The refusal to detach identity from outcome is what ends most journeys before they truly begin. As the Stoic philosopher Epictetus said, "It's not things that upset us, but our judgments about things." Failure itself doesn't break you. Your judgment of it does. If you tell yourself, "This proves I am not capable," you will live in that shadow. But if you tell yourself, "This shows me how to improve," the very same event becomes fuel. This is why beginnings are so fragile. They are filled with mistakes and shortcomings. Those who cannot detach from failure never make it past the beginning. But those who view failure as data understand that beginnings are supposed to be rough. They expect mistakes, and so they are not crushed by them. By detaching from the fantasy of a perfect start, they allow themselves the freedom to learn, adapt, and continue. Failure, when stripped of attachment, becomes the most honest teacher. It shows you exactly where you stand. To ignore it is foolish. To attach yourself to it is destructive. But to use it, that is wisdom. Accept the failure. Accept the sting. Accept the lesson. And then move on. When you begin to live this way, setbacks no longer derail you. Rejections no longer crush you. Instead, they become your fuel. Over time, you build a resilience so deep that failure ceases to scare you. It becomes part of the rhythm of life. You stop asking, "What if I fail?" and start asking, "What will I learn when I do?" Marcus Aurelius captured this perfectly when he wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." The obstacle is not separate from the path. It is the path. Failure is not a detour. It is part of the road itself. Those who resist it stay stuck. Those who embrace it keep walking. This applies to pressure, too. Some people crumble the moment the weight of expectation presses down, while others seem to grow sharper, clearer, and stronger in the same conditions. The difference is never luck. It is preparation. Life is not a question of whether storms will come, but only a question of when. Those who expect calm seas are always caught off guard when the winds rise. But those who prepare for the inevitable turbulence are never truly surprised. Pressure does not create weakness or strength. It only reveals what was already there. Think of how soldiers are trained. They do not wait for the battlefield to test their discipline. They run drills until their responses become second nature. When chaos arrives, they do not rely on luck. They rely on their training. The same is true in life. Pressure shows up in arguments, financial struggles, and loss. And if you have never trained your mind to remain steady, those storms will break you. But if you have built calmness into your very nature, pressure becomes just another stage on which your preparation reveals itself. Marcus Aurelius lived under constant strain as emperor of Rome. He faced wars, plagues, and betrayal. Yet his writings are filled not with despair, but with reminders of preparation. His strength was not born in the hardest moments. It was built daily in small acts of discipline and self-control. By the time the great storms came, he was already steady. This is why the Stoics emphasized anticipation. They would practice imagining loss and hardship, not to live in fear, but to prepare the mind. As Seneca advised, the man who has anticipated the coming of troubles takes away their power when they arrive. Preparation shrinks fear. It makes the overwhelming manageable, because you have already faced it in your mind. Pressure is a mirror. It reflects back to you what you have been practicing all along. If you have practiced avoidance, it will show. If you have practiced self-control, it will shine through. The moment of stress is not when you begin building strength, it is when you reveal it. The hours, days, and years before are when you are either preparing yourself or leaving yourself vulnerable. Think of an athlete. They do not just practice when the stadium is full. They prepare in empty gyms, in quiet mornings, in repetitions no one ever sees. That is where the victory is truly decided. Your victory over pressure is decided in the quiet moments of preparation, long before the storm ever arrives. When the spotlight finds them, they do not flinch. For what feels like a crushing weight to others is, to them, a familiar embrace. They have already lived through the pressure in the quiet solitude of their training. The same holds true for the mind. If you practice calmness during small irritations, you will not be undone by the great tempests. If you train yourself to accept loss in small ways, the greater losses will not be your ruin. The strength you build in private becomes your shield when the storm arrives in public. And here lies a hidden truth. Pressure does not weaken you. It introduces you to yourself. It reveals whether your roots run deep or lie shallow. It shows you whether your discipline is real or merely imagined. This is why, in hindsight, some people thank their hardships. They realize that without those moments of trial, they would never have discovered the true depth of their own strength. The philosopher Epictetus reminded his students that difficulties are the things which show what men are. Without them, we would never know our own capacity. And is that not what we ultimately seek? To know ourselves, to see what lies beneath the surface when all else is stripped away. So the next time you feel the weight of pressure building, remind yourself, this is not the enemy. This is the test. This is the arena where your preparation, or your lack of it, will be revealed. Instead of resisting, lean into it. Remember that storms are not exceptions in life. They are part of its design. If you expect them, they will not shock you. If you prepare for them, they will not break you. And if you welcome them as teachers, they will shape you into someone unshakable. Pressure is not something to fear. It is something to train for, something to embrace, something to use. Because in the end, those who thrive are not the ones who wait for calm seas, but those who learn to sail, no matter how fierce the winds become. Preparation is the difference. And when you are prepared, storms are no longer disasters. They are opportunities to prove the strength you have been building all along. Consider this. How many wars have been waged within the confines of your own mind? Wars that never touched the soil of reality. How many hours have been lost replaying conversations, imagining worst-case scenarios, or agonizing over outcomes that never came to pass? We all do it. Our minds are master architects of storms that do not exist. And yet, in the moment, these storms feel so real that they consume our energy, shape our moods, and dictate the choices we make. Most of these worries fade with time, but in the heat of the moment, we grant them the power of eternal truths. It is as if we are living two lives at once, the life unfolding before us, and the one raging inside our head. And so often, the second one feels heavier than the first. Worry thrives on the echo of a single thought, looping endlessly, masquerading as preparation. But this is a grand illusion, for worry does not prevent pain. It merely forces you to suffer it twice, first in your imagination and then, perhaps, in reality. Most of the time, the imagined suffering is far worse than the reality could ever be. Yet we pour our energy into it as if it were the most important battle of our lives. The wise choose a different path. They recognize that energy is a finite resource. Every thought, every worry, every conflict you entertain is a drain upon you. Because of this, you cannot afford to fight every battle. You cannot afford to spend yourself on that which does not move you forward. In his meditations, Marcus Aurelius would ask himself if the thing disturbing him would matter in 10 years, or even in 10 days. That single question has the power to shrink most worries to their true size. When viewed through the lens of time, most of our battles are revealed for what they are: fleeting irritations, not eternal struggles. Think back to the last time you were consumed by worry. Perhaps it was about an opinion someone held of you, a situation at work, or a mistake from your past. In the moment, it felt monumental. But looking back now, does it carry the same weight? Most likely not. The storm passes, the world moves on, and the thing that once stole your sleep fades into irrelevance. This is the cost of fighting battles in the mind. You pay with your peace for things that never deserved it. There is a discipline in choosing your battles, and it begins with awareness. Awareness of how often you are dragged into fights that don't exist. Awareness of how much energy you spend on ghosts. Once you see it, you can begin to step back. You can remind yourself that not every thought deserves an audience. You can let some pass like clouds in the sky, instead of turning each one into a storm. The more you practice this, the lighter your mind becomes. Instead of being constantly at war with yourself, you discover a profound peace, not because the world has grown easier, but because you have grown wiser with your attention. As Aristotle observed, the energy of the mind is the essence of life. That energy can either be wasted on meaningless battles or invested in meaningful ones. Every time you allow your mind to spiral into worry, you drain the very energy that could be used to create, to solve, to grow. It is like trying to carry water in a leaking bucket. You pour out endless effort, but when you truly need it, nothing remains. Those who learn to seal those leaks, who stop wasting their strength on shadows, suddenly find themselves with a deep reservoir for what truly matters. And when you begin to live this way, you notice something else. The world itself seems to become quieter. Not because the external problems have vanished, but because the internal noise has subsided. You stop overanalyzing every word spoken to you. You stop obsessing over every uncertain outcome. You stop rehearsing conversations that will never happen. Instead, you reserve your focus for what is directly in front of you. And in that simplicity, you find clarity. The mind that once felt like a battlefield begins to feel like a sanctuary. This does not mean you ignore problems. The wise are not careless. It means you recognize the difference between problems that demand action and phantoms that exist only in thought. One is real, the other imagined. One needs solving, the other needs to be released. This distinction is what separates the steady from the perpetually anxious. The anxious person fights endlessly, losing battles that never existed. The steady person chooses their ground carefully, saving their strength for what matters most. Plato once said that the part can never be well unless the whole is well. If your mind is at war with itself, no single part of your life can ever be truly at peace. That is why choosing your battles is not just about efficiency. It is about harmony. When you cease fighting unnecessary wars in your head, the rest of your life begins to align. Your relationships become calmer, your work becomes clearer, your presence becomes stronger. Peace of mind ripples outward, shaping everything you touch. So, the next time your mind begins to spiral, pause. Ask yourself, does this battle matter? Will it matter tomorrow, next month, or next year? If the answer is no, then let it go. Save your energy for what deserves it. Save your strength for the challenges that will truly shape you. Because in the end, the mind will always present you with battles, but only you can decide which ones are worth fighting. And that choice is what separates a life consumed by worry from a life lived with wisdom. And what of approval? Is there anything more exhausting than the chase for validation from those who will forget your name by sunrise? How many choices are made not because they align with our values, but because they align with what we believe will earn us praise? We alter how we speak, how we act, even how we dream, just to fit into the molds that others provide. But the tragedy is that applause is fleeting. One moment it lifts you, the next it vanishes, leaving you empty and desperate for another taste of validation. The moment you stop needing that applause, the moment you let go of the hunger for approval, you taste true freedom. Approval, you see, is a leash, and every desperate pull for more only tightens its grip. But detachment is the severing of that chain. It is freedom. Marcus Aurelius, burdened with the weight of an empire, still reminded himself daily, "It never ceases to amaze me. We all love ourselves more than other people, but care more about their opinion than our own." He saw the absurdity of the trap. We know ourselves better than anyone, yet we allow strangers, critics, and casual acquaintances to hold more influence over our sense of worth than our own inner judgment. Is that not a form of madness? To abandon the one voice that truly knows us for the clamor of voices that barely see us? When you free yourself, notice what happens. The same people whose approval you once chased may become confused, even disappointed, because you no longer bend to their expectations. But over time, something shifts. People begin to respect you more when they realize your worth is not contingent on their opinion. You become untouchable in a way that those who beg for validation can never be. This is why approval is so dangerous. It disguises itself as connection. We think that by earning it, we are building bonds, but in truth, we are building cages. We are training ourselves to move only when others pull the strings. Every word becomes calculated, every action designed for effect, until we are no longer living, only performing. And in the process, we forget who we truly are. Detachment breaks this cycle. It hands the pen of your story back to you. But detachment requires courage. It means risking disapproval, standing firm in your decisions when others criticize, and holding to your vision even when the crowd mocks it. This is why so few choose this path. It feels uncomfortable to step off the stage. Yet that discomfort is the doorway to freedom. Socrates endured ridicule and trial for refusing to conform. He could have lived longer by yielding, but he chose to remain true to himself. His freedom lay not in survival, but in integrity. And here is the paradox. When you stop seeking approval, you often gain more of it. Not the shallow applause that comes and goes, but the deep, abiding respect that is born of authenticity. People trust those who are not desperate to be liked because they sense something rare, a person who is grounded in themselves. Plato said, "The greatest wealth is to live content with little." And what is greater contentment than to live with yourself, without needing constant confirmation from others? That wealth cannot be bought, and it cannot be taken away. Look closely at those who achieved greatness in any field: philosophy, art, science, leadership. Almost without exception, they were misunderstood in their own time. They were mocked, doubted, and criticized. But because they were detached from the need for approval, they pressed forward. They were not chasing applause, they were chasing truth. And only later did the world catch up. Imagine if their need for validation had been stronger than their commitment to their vision. We would have been left with mediocrity instead of masterpieces. Approval is intoxicating, but it is also an addiction. The more you receive, the more you crave, and the less you can live without it. That cycle is endless, unless you choose to break it. And breaking it requires realizing that approval is never really about you. It's about the other person's expectations. To live for approval is to hand over your life to standards you did not create. To live detached from it is to finally begin shaping yourself on your own terms. Do not mistake detachment for arrogance. True detachment is humble. It does not say, "I don't care about anyone." It says, "I care, but I am not defined by anyone's opinion." It is the difference between valuing connection and being enslaved by it. Those who chase approval often become arrogant, their self-worth rising and falling with the tides of praise. The detached, however, remain steady. They can hear both criticism and applause without losing their center. That steadiness is what makes them trustworthy, admirable, and truly strong. So the question is simple, yet profound. Are you willing to let go of the leash? The moment you do, everything changes. Your decisions become clearer, your voice becomes steadier, and your presence becomes stronger. You stop bending for every opinion and start standing tall in your own truth. And that freedom is worth more than all the applause in the world. Criticism is another test, one of the most subtle and dangerous we face. At first, it feels deeply personal, a dagger aimed at your sense of worth. Words, it is said, can cut deeper than any blade, for they strike not at the flesh, but at the very core of our identity. Yet if you pause and look closer, you will find that most criticism is not about you at all. It is a mirror, reflecting the critic's own insecurities, their own hidden disappointments, their own unresolved conflicts. They project these onto you because it is easier than facing themselves. And if you accept that projection as truth, you end up carrying borrowed pain. Why let the wounds of others become your own? That burden was never meant for you. The wisest path is to recognize it. Take what little may be useful and leave the rest behind. This ability to filter criticism is rare because we are conditioned to treat every comment as valid. We are trained to defend, to explain, to justify. But living this way turns every outside voice into a master of your emotions. Marcus Aurelius, who faced endless criticism as emperor, reminded himself, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it." He saw that criticism gains its sting from our interpretation, not from the words themselves. One person hears an insult and dismisses it as noise. Another hears the same words and carries their weight for years. The difference lies in the value you assign to it, and that value is always within your control. Think of how often people project their limitations onto others. Someone criticizes your ambition because they have abandoned their own. Someone mocks your courage because they never found theirs. Someone doubts your vision because they cannot see beyond their own narrow frame. If you let their words shape you, you are allowing their limitations to become your boundaries. Of course, not all criticism is worthless. Some is essential. The challenge is to discern the difference. Constructive criticism comes from those who wish to see you grow. Destructive criticism is merely noise, born of envy or ignorance. The wise learn to filter. They separate the grain from the chaff, turning even negative voices into tools for progress. As Seneca observed, "No man was ever wise by chance. Wisdom is deliberate. You must train your mind not to be shaken by every passing word. If the words offer truth, embrace them. If they are empty, discard them without a second thought. To be unmoved by shallow judgment is not arrogance. It is maturity. It means you have built your worth on a foundation deeper than the shifting sands of opinion. Imagine an artist chiseling a statue. Passers-by will comment. Some will admire, some will mock. The artist does not abandon his vision every time a voice interrupts. He listens when someone speaks with knowledge, but he ignores the rest. His work is guided not by the noise of the crowd, but by the clarity of his own purpose. You are the sculptor of your own life. If you adjust your form for every comment, you will end up with nothing but fragments. But if you stay true to your vision while remaining open to wisdom, you create something that lasts. How do you keep criticism from cutting so deep? By remembering that you are not obligated to accept every gift handed to you. An insult is like a package left at your door. You do not have to bring it inside. You can leave it where it lies. The critic may have offered it, but you decide whether to claim it. Detachment is the strength to see words as external objects, not as reflections of your identity. When you practice this, you begin to notice how much lighter life feels. You carry only what is useful. You become someone who cannot be easily manipulated by opinion, someone whose worth is rooted deeper than the surface. This calmness is magnetic. People are drawn to those who remain steady in the storm of voices. So the next time criticism comes, and it will, remember it is just another test. Not of your worth, but of your wisdom. Keep what helps you grow. Discard the rest, and move on. Life is too short to carry the pain that others try to hand you. The freedom of living unbothered is found not in silencing your critics, but in silencing the part of yourself that believes every word deserves your energy. Do you see the pattern that emerges? When you remain unaffected, you are not merely shielding yourself from harm. You are fundamentally altering the dynamics of power. The moment someone realizes their words cannot penetrate you, the balance shifts. Instead of you struggling to defend, they begin struggling to understand. People admire what they cannot shake, because it suggests a depth of strength they do not yet possess. They respect what they cannot easily figure out, because mystery has always carried its own power. To stand firm, unbothered by the turbulence of others, is to become an enigma, and in that mystery there is a profound and silent strength. Think of the moments in history where true influence came not from loud displays, but from quiet, steady composure. The leaders who did not need to explain themselves at every turn were the ones who carried the most authority. Their silence was not emptiness. It was presence. Marcus Aurelius once gave himself a powerful command. Be like the rock. Let the waves break against you again and again. It stands firm, and in its stillness, it tames the fury of the water around it. The rock does not shout at the waves. It does not try to stop them. It simply is, unmoved. And in its unshakable presence, it transforms chaos into calm. This is the very strength people feel when you remain unaffected, a groundedness that speaks louder than any reaction ever could. The psychologist Carl Jung saw the human psyche in similar terms. He wrote that the meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. When you react wildly, you are easily changed by others. But when you remain calm, they are transformed by you. Your refusal to bend makes them question their own position. Your mystery unsettles them, for it exposes their own predictability. They expected conflict, they braced for control, but what they find is a quiet center they cannot touch. This is why mystery is so magnetic. People lean in when they cannot fully understand you. They wonder, they speculate, they try to solve the puzzle of who you are. The less you give in to reaction, the more they project their own interpretations onto your stillness. And often, those projections are far more powerful than anything you could have said. Your silence, your restraint, your composure, these do not push people away. They invite a deep and powerful curiosity, one of the strongest forces of attraction. We are all drawn to that which we cannot easily define. The philosopher Seneca offered a simple piece of wisdom. "If you wish to be loved," he said, "love. But if you wish to be respected, the principle is different. You must not be easily moved. Respect is born not from bending, but from standing firm. We trust those who remain steady under pressure, because their steadiness suggests mastery. When others lose control, their eyes search for the one who has not. And when that one is you, your mystery hardens into authority. They may not always like you, but they will always respect you." Consider how this plays out in your own life. When you are overly reactive, when every word and gesture pulls an immediate response, your presence loses its value. You become predictable, and the predictable are easily manipulated. But when you remain calm, responding with intention rather than impulse, people treat you differently. They hesitate before provoking you. They measure their words more carefully. They sense that you are not like the others, that you cannot be controlled in the same way. This subtle shift grants you a quiet leverage, an influence born not of force, but of restraint. And this mystery is not just an external mask. It changes you from within. When you stop reacting to everything, you begin to conserve your vital energy. You no longer waste it on trivial conflicts, on arguments that lead nowhere, on proving points that do not matter. That energy builds within you, and people can feel it, a quiet intensity that needs no announcement to be recognized. Nature itself teaches this lesson. A storm rages with tremendous noise, but it always passes. The mountain, silent and steady, remains. The oak tree sways in the wind, but it does not uproot. The river cuts through stone not with force, but with persistence. These are the images of true strength, unbothered, patient, enduring. We admire them because they represent what we all secretly desire: stability in a world of chaos. When you embody even a fraction of that power in your own life, you carry the same quiet authority. And herein lies the paradox of respect. People may laugh with the loudest person in the room, but they almost always admire the one who speaks least, yet is most deeply felt. And what of silence? Silence is a weapon, though most do not know how to wield it. We rush to explain, to defend, to justify. The empty space left by unanswered words feels uncomfortable, and so we fill it, often exposing weaknesses we never meant to reveal. But the one who can remain silent commands the moment without ever asking for it. Silence makes people lean in. It forces them to think. It unsettles them in a way that words never could. Words reveal. Silence conceals. And concealment has always been a form of power. The great irony is that silence often says more than words ever could. When someone insults you, your silence communicates that their attempt did not even merit a response. When they pressure you for an answer, your silence shows you will not be hurried. When they try to provoke you, your silence reveals that you are untouchable. In every case, the absence of reaction speaks volumes. But silence does not only disarm others, it sharpens you. When you speak less, you listen more. You hear the tone beneath the words, the hesitation in the voice, the contradiction between what is said and what is felt. Most people miss these vital details because they are too busy preparing their own response. Silence makes you an observer. It allows you to gather information without giving away your own position. This is why, in negotiations, in arguments, and in the quiet moments of life, silence is often the most strategic move you can make. You reveal nothing while learning everything. Yet, even this mastery of the external world is not enough, for your own thoughts can betray you. You may believe the real enemies are outside, difficult people, unpredictable events, but the deepest battles are always fought within the mind. Fear, doubt, hesitation, these are the true shadows. They creep in quietly and begin directing your actions before you even realize it. How many times has fear stopped you before you began? How many times has doubt whispered that you are not ready? These inner enemies build a prison stronger than any physical walls. The truth is, the mind is not naturally your ally. Left untrained, it wanders, it clings, it resists, and it reacts. It can be your greatest tool or your most formidable obstacle. That is why it must be trained daily, just as the body is strengthened through exercise. This training begins with awareness. Practices like gratitude, discipline, and detachment are not lofty ideals. They are exercises in focus. Gratitude shifts your attention from what is missing to what is present, starving fear of its scarcity. Discipline sharpens your ability to act despite discomfort. Detachment allows you to see thoughts and emotions for what they are. Visitors, not rulers. The mind, like a muscle, grows only through resistance. A body without resistance remains fragile. A mind without challenges remains soft, repeating old patterns, never gaining true strength. This is why setbacks, difficulties, and failures are not just obstacles. They are essential tools for growth. Each moment of resistance is an opportunity to build resilience. As the Stoic Epictetus taught, our trials are what show what men are. When you meet resistance and endure it, you prove to yourself that your mind can withstand pressure. And every time you do, you grow stronger. Seneca wrote that fire tests gold and suffering tests brave men. You cannot claim strength without a trial to prove it. Just as metal is refined in the furnace, your spirit is refined in adversity. The insult you endure without reacting, the pressure you bear without breaking, the failure you rise from without despair, these are the moments that temper you. They turn raw potential into real power. Let the world test you then. Let the insults come. Let the pressure build. These are not punishments. They are opportunities. Every trial is practice. Every moment of discomfort is training. Life does not forge strength in ease. It carves it in difficulty, in resistance, in the very moments you wish were not happening. To avoid the test is to avoid the growth. To welcome it is to become unshakable. This armor you build is not made of arrogance or cold detachment. It is forged from mastery. It is not about refusing to feel, but about refusing to be ruled by what you feel. The insult may still sting, but you do not let it guide your actions. The pressure may still weigh on you, but you do not let it dictate your decisions. And in your calmness, in your silence, in your refusal to simply react, you create a mystery that becomes your greatest strength. not because you have hidden who you are, but because you have revealed that your center, the very core of you, is unshakable. And in a world where most are constantly pulled in every direction, that steadiness will always stand out as rare, as valuable, and as undeniably powerful. This is how true armor is forged, layer by layer, choice by choice, moment by moment. Until one day, people look at you and wonder why nothing seems to rattle you. They see only the fortress. They do not see the countless small battles that laid each stone. This is an ancient wisdom. Plato himself spoke of the soul being tested and tempered by struggle, believing that the highest form of strength is born not in comfort, but in facing hardship with clarity. And this is the gift the world gives you, even when it feels cruel. It will test you. It will insult you. It will press you down. But in those very moments, you are being sculpted into someone formidable. And once you understand this, resentment gives way to resolve. You begin to use the trials. So let the world bring its trials. Do not shrink from the pressure, the insults, the failures. Let them come, for they are not here to destroy you. They are here to train you. Every trial is practice. Every moment of struggle is another chance to build your resilience. Each time you choose calm over chaos, you add another plate to an armor no one can pierce. And when that armor is strong enough, nothing outside of you, not people, not events, not even fate, will have the power to break you. Because in the end, it is not the world that determines whether you remain unshaken. It is you. The trials will come, no matter what. But whether you collapse beneath them or grow because of them, that choice, and that choice alone, is always yours. And when others look upon you, wondering at your stillness in the storm, you will know you have built something truly rare. You have mastered the art of being unbothered, not because life suddenly became easy, but because you became stronger. You have finally understood the profound truth that power is not found in bending the world to your will, but in mastering your own response to it. Once you own your reactions, you own your life. That is a freedom most will never taste, yet it is available to anyone who dares to train for it. This strength is a quiet force, yet it does not go unnoticed. People feel its presence. They see how you move through storms without losing your footing. They notice how insults glance off you, how pressure fails to bend you, how setbacks refuse to define you. They may not understand it, and at first, it may even unsettle them. For while the world is quick to rage, to crumble, to defend its fragile ego, you remain steady. You carry yourself with a different weight, and that difference is magnetic. It commands respect without ever asking for it. Let us be clear. To be unbothered is not to be indifferent. Indifference is the coldness of apathy, a refusal to engage with life. To be unbothered is the conscious choice to engage with life fully, yet refuse to be enslaved by its whims or the opinions of others. You still feel, you still care, you still act, but you do so from a place of inner sovereignty, responding on your own terms, never pulled into a reaction. The difference is subtle, yet it is the very line between bondage and freedom. When you arrive at this place, a quiet transformation occurs. Peace ceases to be a destination. It becomes your default state. Where you once would have reacted, you now breathe. Where you once would have fought, you now pause. Where you once would have crumbled, you now stand. That peace radiates outward, influencing how you speak, how you move, how you connect with others. People begin to trust you, to seek your counsel when chaos descends, because they sense you are not easily moved. You become an anchor of calm in a world that thrives on noise. It is as Aristotle observed. The ultimate value of life depends upon awareness and the power of contemplation rather than upon mere survival. In mastering the art of being unbothered, you embody this awareness. You are no longer merely surviving, reacting to every spark. You are living deliberately, with clarity and intention. Your calmness is not passive, it is active. It is the product of constant awareness, of choosing where to direct your energy, and refusing to waste it on that which does not serve you. Yet, it would be a profound mistake to believe this journey has an end. The mastery of self is not a destination, but a daily practice. Each day the world will offer new tests. Each day someone will try to provoke you. Life will present new obstacles, and your own mind will conjure new doubts. But each day also brings another chance to practice, another chance to reinforce the armor you have built, another chance to choose calm. Over time, these choices compound, until your default is no longer a reaction, but a measured response, born of clarity. And perhaps that is the final truth. To be unbothered is to be free. Free from the grip of insults, free from the weight of criticism, free from the endless need for validation. You are no longer owned by your circumstances. You are no longer swayed by every passing emotion. You belong to yourself, and when they ask how you remain so calm, you will smile, not with superiority, but with the quiet wisdom of one who knows the secret. Life did not get easier. You simply became stronger. You learned that in owning your reactions, you discovered you could own your life. So let the world wonder. Let them speculate about your silence, your unshakable calm. You have no need to explain it. You need only to live it. For the art of being unbothered is not a lesson to be told, but a strength to be shown. It is the strength of self-mastery, the strength of true freedom, the strength of a life that is, finally and completely, your own.